Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Rabab Kaur and I am a physiotherapist who has specialized in musculoskeletal. Today I am speaking on the behalf of School of Medical and Allied Sciences, Department of Physiotherapy, Galgotias University. So today we'll be discussing another practical of our biochemistry, that is practical number 2, which is to define the biochemistry of connective tissue. Now if we talk about connective tissue, what it is, just in layman's term or in a most common language, we say connective tissue is that tissue that connects different parts of our body to each other. Can be the form of a bone, it can be the form of a fluid, a solid, or any kind of viscous material. We have seen basic criteria and characteristics of connective tissues in our biology lab, in our schools, in our 10th and 12th standards. We have also done their dissections and seen them under the microscope. But today we'll be dealing with them a little much more in detail. Let's proceed on. Recapitulations. So now recapitulating or recapping what we studied last time. We discussed about the muscle contraction phenomena, in which we discussed about the thick and thin filaments, the sarcomere, the various zones of a muscle and a sarcomere. We also discussed about sliding filament theory, which stated when does actin and myosin or thick and thick filaments slide and glide on one another, causing muscle contraction and retraction or relaxation. This is very important because it helps us to identify any pathology which may occur later on. Another thing which we discussed was ATP, the adenosine triphosphatase, that is releasing the energy in our bodies responsible for ATP and muscle contraction. Since muscle contraction requires ATP, so we discussed about both of their scenario in our previous practical. So proceeding on for today's session, the objective or aim of our today's class is to define the biochemistry of connective tissue. We'll be also learning about the collagen, reticular and the elastic fibers. Since these are the components of connective tissue, so we'll be dealing with them in detail. We will also see and study about the cells of the connective tissue and hence their functions. So introducing the topic, in contrast to the epithelia or the epithelium cells, connective tissue is sparsely populated by cells and contains an extensive extracellular matrix consisting of protein fibers, glycoproteins, and proteoglycans. So a connective tissue is actually quite populated. It is actually quite spread out in our body. It has an extensive extracellular matrix that consists of different kinds of components, the examples of which are the protein fibers, glycoproteins, and the proteoglycans. The function of this type of tissue is to provide structural and mechanical support for other tissues and to mediate the exchange of nutrients and waste between the circulation and other tissues. So it also helps to transform nutrients from one part of our body to another, whereas removal of waste from the desired place to the excretion process. These tissues have two principal components, an extracellular matrix and a variety of support cells which actually help in connecting and causing various reactions in our body. Most frequently, the different types of connective tissues are specified by their content of three distinguishing types of extracellular fibers: the collagenous fibers, the elastic fibers, and the reticular fibers. So this picture is actually the microscopic view of the connective tissue, how it is visible to us on a microscope. Now, to talk much more about in detail about these three types of fibers mentioned here, I have included a short video. Now let's discuss through that video what these fibers are and what is the basic action or the function of the connective tissue. Now the collagen fibers. The fibers, it is a fiber of the connective tissue. Collagenous fibers consists of type 1, 2 or 3 collagen, and they are present in all types of connective tissue. So these collagen fibers are actually present inside the connective tissue. Collagenous connective tissue is divided into two types based upon the ratio of collagen fibers to ground substance. Now, ground substance is an aqueous gel of glycoproteins and proteoglycans that occupies the space between the cellular and fibrillar elements of the connective tissue. So we already saw about the ground substance. We discussed that ground substance is sometimes heavier in some kind of connective tissue and lighter in some kind of connective tissue. Now we actually know what kind of a material or what is actually ground substance. Loose or areolar connective tissue, which we have discussed in our video, is the most abundant form of collagenous connective tissue. It occurs in small elongated bundles separated by regions that contain the ground substance. Dense connective tissue is enriched in collagen fibers with little ground substance. If closely packed bundles of fibers are located in one direction, it is called regular. If oriented in multiple directions, it is referred to as irregular. We can see from this diagram, this is the dense collagenous, this is the dense or the, and this is the non-dense one. An example of dense connective tissue is that of tendons, which connect bone to muscles, and an example of irregular dense connective tissue is that of the dermis of the skin. Looking at the reticular fibers, which are another fibers in the connective tissues. Now, reticular fibers are composed of type 3 collagen. Reticular fibers form a thick reticular network, as we can see from this diagram. Such networks are widespread among different tissues and form supporting frameworks in the liver, lymphoid organs, capillary endothelia, and muscle fibers. Next are the elastic fibers. Elastic fibers contain the protein elastin, which copolymerizes within the protein fibrillin. These fibers are often organized into lamellar sheets as in the walls of the arteries. Dense, regular elastic tissue characterizes ligaments. Elastic fibers are stretchable because they are normally disorganized. We can see from this diagram. Stretching these fibers makes them take on an organized structure. So they are disorganized, and when you stretch it, they become organized. That is why they can be stretched. Now, those were the three fibers which we actually saw of the connective tissue. Now, let's look at some of the cells of the connective tissue. The first cell of the connective tissue is fibroblast. The fibroblast synthesizes the collagen and ground substance of the extracellular matrix. So, fibroblast is actually synthesizing the collagen and the ground substance. These cells make a large amount of protein that they secrete to build the connective tissue layer. Some fibroblasts have a contractile function and they are known as myofibroblasts. Myo means muscle. So this is the way a fibroblast looks like under the microscope. Another one are macrophages. The macrophages is the connective tissue representative of the reticuloendothelial or mononuclear phagocyte system. This system consists of number of tissue-specific mobile phagocytic cells that descend from monocytes. These include the Kupffer cells of the liver, the alveolar macrophages of the lung, the microglia of the central nervous system, and the reticular cells of the spleen. Macrophages are indistinguishable from fibroblasts but can be recognized when they internalize large amounts of visible tracer substance like dyes or carbon particles. Macrophages phagocytose foreign material in the connective tissue layer. The next variety of cell is mast cell. Mast cells are granulated cells typically found in connective tissue. These cells mediate immune responses to foreign particles. They release large amounts of histamine and enzymes in response to antigen recognition. This degranulation process is protective when foreign organisms invade the body, but is also the cause of many allergic reactions. So these were the fibers and the basic cells of our connective tissue. Now to summarize it, we just read about the biochemistry of the connective tissue, its structure, its function, the types, varieties. We discussed about the characteristics of the collagen, reticular, and the elastic fibers. We also saw the main three cells of the connective tissue and their functions. I hope this lecture was clear to you guys and was quite informative. Thank you so much.